What's going on, dudes? Gonna do my Thanksgiving 2020 edition in the bag. Hopefully you can hear me over all these kids. For starters, use an Upper Park Rebel this year. I got it from my buddy Bo. Thanks, man. I absolutely adore this bag. It holds like 26, 27 discs, whatever I want to stick in it. Got plenty of storage. Obviously the new ones have bigger side pockets. I'll start there. Keep a flight towel on the outside and my sweet moon dust bag. I have a couple of these I rotate now. This side pocket here is mostly for towels. Normally in the winter I've got like a Ziploc bag full of these. I carry a bunch of these microfibers and then a couple of waffle types like the flight towel here. And then I have assorted stuff in here like minis and random stuff. Other side is where I keep a lot of my personal stuff, keep my wallet, keep a sanding block for cleaning up discs, things like booties and my first aid kit, all that stuff that I kind of need, and my snacks, hand warmers. All that stuff goes on this side. And always have my water bottle. I got my Yeti here. So I'll start with putters here. Carry 2 Lumen Links. I kind of like the Medusa ones more, but I've already beat in a bunch of these OTB ones, so these are what I'm using now for my putting. Throwing putters, carry a few. So understable first. This is a 172 gram D-Line P1X. This thing's pretty darn flippy. I can throw it on a bunch of hyzer and it'll ride up and either drift right or kind of go back to straight and then finish out. Sky God 3, it's one of my ace discs this year. It's pretty overstable. This thing's seen a bunch of trees already and it's starting to straighten out a lot. It's still like plenty torque resistant and overstable, but it'll still start to turn a little bit now when it didn't used to. And then for my overstable throwing putter, carrying this original RunSensei. This thing is pretty damn beefy. If I get over on it a bit, it doesn't like to really fight back, but on flatter hyzer, it really likes to turn left. Approach discs, I carry first of all Exosoft Tactic. I love how these feel. As they beat in, they get this like kind of warped puddle thing, and it actually feels really good. Forehand grip wise, I feel like I get a lot of grip. I have a lot of control with this disc. It's kind of like a beat-in harp at this point. It's not overly overstable, but I can throw it forehand really soft. And then what I like about it is that it's a really comfortable putter too. So if I have to putt in the wind or something happens, God forbid, I can turn to this. And then I'm carrying a 500 A2. This is my beefy one. I go back and forth between 750 A3 and this one. I just really like the A2's extra little bit of stability, especially with how crappy my forehand is. It'll eat a lot more of my oats and help it dump out a little bit. Mid-ranges. Again, I order my bag. I go speed left to right, and then I go stability within those minor things. So it's mid-ranges, drivers, and then I go understable to overstable. So my most understable mid-range is my D-Line MD. I love this thing. It doesn't even look that beat in, but it's seen some shit, and it definitely wants to flip up from flat and turn right, and just once it turns, it doesn't come back. It just keeps on going. A little bit more stable version of that, but still wanting to turn right, is this Luster MD. This is also seeing some stuff. You can see it doesn't even have a stamp anymore. Same deal. I can put it on hyzer and it'll flip up and just kind of slowly drift right, or I can throw it a little flat and it'll turn almost like the D-Line one, except at the very end it'll start to pan out a little bit. New to the bag, Iron Samurai 2. I have had mixed feelings about MD3s in the past. I haven't liked how they felt. I haven't liked how they flown. My G-Line, C-Line, they were super overstable. This thing is like a buzz. It feels amazing right out of the box. It's torque resistant still. You know, I've ripped on it a couple times in the last few days and had it fight back and everything. But it's also super straight when I want it to be, and so far I'm absolutely in love with it. And then overstable, I throw Crescent Falcon 2 MD4, just below MD4. If you really mash on this thing, it'll go straight, and then kind of push forward fade. If you noodle it even in the slightest, it will just dump. Okay, fairways. Most understable is this Evolution Essence. This thing is absolutely very flippy even before I hit a bunch of trees and stuff with it. Throw it on hyzer, it'll go up and turn. What I like to do is a little bit of like an almost flat angle forced Annie and let it just go way right. If I rip this on a lot of hyzer, it might be the farthest disc in my bag with my arm just because it's so glidey. These are great discs, man. I absolutely recommend these. I think like everybody can find a use for an Essence in their bag. Next up, Night Strike 3 replaced some of my CLine FDs. It's definitely more flippy than them. I'll probably have some throws going over this so you can kind of see that this definitely flips up more. If I come over a little bit, it doesn't like to come back as much. This thing's pretty new. It hasn't seen a ton of boost yet, so it still will fight back at the end, like an FD will, but it'll hold that big ante. Not that that's a shot I throw a lot, but it does like to hold the angles. In the middle, Night Strike 2. I like to say this is basically like my T-Bird. I would say mine is 7502. It doesn't flip up very much. It finishes pretty hard, a lot harder than my FDs do, my regular FDs. So I really love this disc. It's really comfortable. Mine's not too domey, so it feels really nice. These are great discs. And then back in the bag is the Rage FD2. I love the feel of these. This is board flat. I don't throw it forehand, but I can. Feels good. Just really comfortable disc. Again, like the MD4, you can just mash on it and it just goes straight, and then just finishes kind of pushing forward. Or I can put a little bit of hyzer on it and it'll stall out and spike down. So I have a lot of control over this. It's not very glidey. So if I have that like 270 foot hole where I could throw a mid-range on, but I don't really want to, or the wind or whatever, I'll throw this instead, and I feel like I have way more control over it. Moving on to control drivers. To start out, Roaming Thunder 2 CD2. I've bagged CLine CD2s, I've bagged S-Line CD2s. These swirly Roaming Thunders are the ones I come back to. Swirly is such a good plastic. It's so grippy and nice. This particular one's more flat than my other ones, so it's not quite as glidey, but these are like laser beams. It's like a long FD with a little bit less flip. They flip out to flat and just ride for days. I can throw these basically as far as my distance drivers, and really what I should be throwing instead of distance drivers with my arm. And then into my overstable CLine FD. It's an old pen run. I bought a couple of these from Jeff Corns and I love them. Just the ever slightest dome. These just feel amazing. This is really good champ. It's usually this super clear champ I don't like, but this stuff's great. This is a very throwable FD3. I can really chuck it hard and it'll hold a while and then dump just as hard, but on a forehand it'll still fight out of a flex or whatever. And then the way more stable one, Doomberg 3 Swirly again. The swirly plastic's amazing. Got an ace with this earlier this year too on a big spike hyzer. This is a big step up stability wise from the CLine one. It wants to turn left, and what this one does is when it hyzers, it likes to get vertical like this and just spike down. So it doesn't skip a ton. So when I throw it in on a little bit of hyzer, it just goes boom and just stops. And then the new control edition of my bag is this PD3. I throw this more than the FD3s and stuff. It absolutely eats all my out on forehand. I can throw like a flex with it. It'll always come back, so it'll eat my wrist roll. It's super duper overstable, and it's not very glidey. So like if I mash on it backhand, it'll hold for a little bit and then dump out. But mostly this thing wants to get to the ground. It's a great utility disc when I'm in the woods or whatever. If I want to put it on like a ton of hyzer and just get it up and down. I don't throw a lot of grenades with it, or grenades period, but I like to throw this thing for that because it just goes straight and lanes straight up and down. So great glow plastic, a little more dome than I like on my forehand discs, but it's so soft that it doesn't really matter. I just mash it in. So this is an absolutely awesome disc. I think this is really an underrated disc, underutilized disc from Discmania. In between, these are my babies. So Lone Howl Swirly PD. I fell in love with this earlier this year. This is probably my favorite disc in my bag right now. Absolutely just throw it as hard as I can flat, and it just goes straight forever and then just gently fades out. It's awesome because in a headwind or whatever, I can throw this thing and it'll just barely ride and then dump out. I like to say like there's a continuation there. MD4, FD2, and the PD are all kind of the same. They're moderate glide. You mash them hard and flat, and they hold straight for a long time and then dump. They're just really workable discs. Compared to the other PDs I've thrown, I can do a lot more with this thing. It's absolutely my workhorse at this point. And then the next step up stability wise would be this Dark Maul. It's way more overstable than the Lone Howl overall, but still not quite enough to like fight out of any ante I put it on or anything like that. It's not a beefcake. It's not like an FD3. This one's a little bit puddled. It's way less glide than the Lone Howl has, but still a lot more throwable than some of the other PDs I've thrown actually. One of my friends had a CLine I threw, and this thing was still more throwable than that. Still kind of learning this one in my bag, but I like it a lot. I like throwing it, and I like having that little bit of utility between this and the regular PD and the PD2. Okay, and then drivers. Throwing a Vapor Enigma at this point. I threw Neos for the last year, and I love the Neos. I'm not a huge fan of Goldline, but these feel really nice. Just a little bit of dome. I can throw this like a long CD2 basically. That's how I'd compare it. They like to flip up to flat and just ride. They don't like to turn a ton, but if you mash on it, it will turn and fight back. I also love to throw these on like a little forced Annie, because when you get them up in the sky, they'll just hold and they just glide and glide and glide, and I can absolutely mash on these. It's probably, of the distance drivers, the one I throw the farthest, and probably my most underutilized one, but I absolutely love these Enigmas. I think anybody who's a noodle arm like me should be throwing these for distance. Carrying 166 gram Clod Breaker 1. It's a pretty pop top one. This one's seen some shit for sure. It's all chewed up around the edge, so when I got this, even at 166, this thing was a beefcake. I could throw it as hard as I want. It still wanted to dump left, kind of like that Doomberg. It likes to spike down like this. Like, I had so many tombstones with it when I first started where they were just stuck in the ground. But now that it's beaten a little bit, I can push it a lot farther. This replaced the Flippy Destroyer in my bag because the Flippy Destroyer was too flippy. And this thing's a lot more controllable. I still don't like to throw it in the wind or anything, but if I got a little bit of breeze, or if I've got a tailwind and I want more stability than the Enigma, I'll go with this. And then I have a stock Sline DD3 I got from Tyler. This one I like quite a bit. Again, same thing. If I want kind of a max distance driver shot in a headwind with some stability on it, I'll throw this. It's less squirrely than the Enigma or the Clod Breaker. It doesn't like to turn as much, but this is still a really throwable DD3 for me. It's got some wear on it, but I can control it. It doesn't go a mile because I'm a noodle arm, but you know, I can still push this out to 375 in a wind when I can't with other discs, and it probably gets thrown more than my other distance drivers just because of that. It's really windy here. And the last disc, newest edition, Skyrider PD2. Obviously, I do not have a big arm, but it's been really windy this last year in Oregon. A lot of headwinds. When I got this disc first, I threw it 400 something feet in a headwind and fell in love with it. This one I got to replace that stolen one is more pop-toppy. It's a lot more domey, even though it's got a lower parting line height. So far, I'm not even sure if this one will stick in the bag or if I'll throw the orange one, because this thing is, you know, it's like a PD2. I can throw it, I don't know, 370, 375 if I really mash it so far, but 375 is the farthest throw I've measured with this new one, and I absolutely ripped on that as hard as I could. So I treat this like a utility disc. It's not an everyday thrower. It's in the bag for winter winds or spring winds. I got a couple tournaments in the Oregon Gorge, the Columbia Gorge this winter, and I know I'm going to need something to fight the wind on longer holes, and that's where this goes. So that is my in the bag. I appreciate you guys watching. Deuces.